All right, guys, here we are again. For this project, going to be creating a poster. Now, the main goal of a poster is to have impact, to get people's attention and quickly communicate um, or persuade people to do something. You know, in this case, you're doing an event poster, so you want people to be interested in this event and to be persuaded to attend. Okay. And so you want to keep it simple, you know, because people oftentimes when they see a poster, they just glance at it and you really got to draw them in. You don't want to have too much text. You want to keep your color palette relatively simple, your type choices minimal, and that'll do the job. So I'm going to go up here to create design. I'm in my desktop Canva app again, custom size, and I'm going to choose inches because when we're doing posters, that's usually for print. And 11 by 17 is relatively small for a poster, but that'll work. We gotta think about file size as well. I'm going to create a new design and get my workspace here. All right. Now, again, you have all of these templates you can kind of use for inspiration if you want to. I would not use them, but you can kind of see how different compositions look and maybe get some ideas from that. You can also do, I do a lot of Google image searches just for inspiration. I'll, Google poster design inspiration and just see what's out there. And sometimes I get inspired by a specific color palette or a specific composition or typeface or whatever. So elements, you can use photos, you can use illustrations, you can just use color or gradients or whatever you want. In this case, let's say if I'm doing a concert, maybe I want a guitar. That's a really interesting photo. So something like that might have some good visual impact. And then I could make it as big as my document, and that starts to be very visually interesting already. I kind of like it offset like that because then you have to think about the way that text and imagery work together, especially if one is going to be on top of the other one. You want to integrate text and image as much as you can rather than having everything separate in their own little boxes. And so when you do that, you want to kind of leave some negative space for some different text elements, that kind of stuff. All right, so that's a good place to start, and now I'm just kind of doing this on the fly. I would recommend that you think about what you want to do and maybe start to think about some imagery options and what your text elements need to be before you encourage you to create your own text and then style it your own way. So I'm going to add a heading here. And who are we going to see? Let's go see Beck. I don't know if you guys know Beck. I've listened to him for years. He's one of my favorites. And that's my headline. So I want that's the thing that needs the most emphasis. So I want that to be real big. And I'm going to put him kind of up here, maybe in using the rule of thirds, where we kind of break things into 9 squares, maybe right along that top third line right there. Something like that. Okay. Now, whether I want it to be all uppercase or, sentence case, whatever, I'm not sure yet, but I'll leave it like that. And then I might go through and try some different fonts, see what looks interesting. That's kind of cool. So every font has its own personality. That's really interesting. That seems more like Beck, so I'm going to go with that. Now, you do have to think about legibility too. For headlines and display type, really large text elements, you can have a little more fun with legibility and readability. Whenever you're thinking about information like, hey, where is this concert? When is it? How do I get tickets to it? That kind of thing. That's where you really have to communicate clearly. So you might use a less decorative typeface for that. So all right, and I'm not worrying about color just yet. I'm just working on my composition because the posters are really all about composition. Another thing to keep in mind, you never want, unless you do it on purpose, I say never, but there's always a reason to break the rule. You usually want to keep important text within margins. You don't want important text going right up against the edge of a printed document, because sometimes it'll get cut off and it looks like something has gone wrong. Now with this big text, if I really wanted to bleed this off the edges like that, I absolutely could, and that's okay. But if I'm having like my location and stuff, you want to keep those within margins, and you want to be consistent about those margins, thinking about grid-based design. So I believe there's a place in here to show margins. Let's see, view settings. Show rulers and margins. That's not what I want. Let's do show margins. There we go. So that gives me a little kind of a grid already, so I know I want to keep my main text within this square. So you can toggle that on and off, but that's just a good guide so you don't have stuff button right up against the edges here. All right, so real quick, I'm just going to put in some extra text here. We're going to say this is going to be January 30th, 8 p.m. Rupp Arena, right? Why not? Lexington, Kentucky. Wouldn't that be nice? And then I probably need one additional area of text. So I might get a little one here, and we'll just say Ticketmaster.com. Or if you wanted to bring a QR code in or something like that, you could do that. And that's, that doesn't need nearly as much emphasis. So I might put that right there against the margins. This I might change the alignment to right align if I can. There we go. And I don't like that font. It's a little too heavy for me. It's got a little too much going on. So I'm going to see what else I can do. I do want kind of a plain sans serif font because I want some contrast. Since I'm using two typefaces, I want some, I don't want them to be too close together. I want something relatively plain that's easy to read. I don't know. I don't want you to sit here and watch me do this for hours, but I'm also kind of a stickler, so just bear with me for a minute. That's all right, I guess. We'll leave it there for now. I'll take the bold off. That's the issue. There we go. And I'm going to take it down. And I'm looking at the space. I'm looking at where this line goes, and I want to kind of create this visual line right there. I think that's a good start, all right? Where I'm trying to counterbalance the text with the image. And this is not perfect. I would definitely mess with this a little more if I were going to submit this, but I think for now it's okay. So now that I have my basic elements, now I can start to play with them a little bit. So now I can choose, I can add some effects to my image. So I can go to edit image, and maybe I want to do a duotone or photogenic, or that color mix is interesting. This there's some trippy effects here. So you have some options. Let's try this color mix. It's okay. Duotone. It's interesting. I kind of like that. That's really bold and in your face. That'll definitely get your attention. All right, now what happened on my text? There we go. All right, so now I have this, and I might adjust the color, or I could try to add some effects and see what happens. I do like that neon, kind of like this glitchy effect too. And you can adjust the offset. Oh, that's interesting. You can also adjust the colors. I think I'll stick with the neon for now. But I encourage you to experiment and play around with this. And, you know, a composition is really, it's like putting a puzzle together. So you move things around, you find what works for you until it fits, till it feels balanced, till it feels like the emphasis is on the right elements. And that's when you know you've done it. So maybe looking at this, maybe I decide I want Beck to go all the way across the middle, and I want my date to be up here and much smaller, or maybe even 2 lines instead of 3 lines or something. Maybe, and you can create hierarchy. Maybe I want the date to be a little bigger than the date and time, or the time and location. So, you know, I encourage you to just play around with this and see where you end up, and maybe, you know, you want to rotate your text a little bit. So there's all sorts of different things you can do. You can play around, you can undo, redo, all that kind of stuff. So play around with this. If you want any feedback as you're working, then send me an email, and I'm happy to provide that, give you some suggestions to make it more balanced, or, you know, stronger composition, better hierarchy, that kind of stuff. So poster design is one of my favorite things. I hope you enjoy it too. I look forward to seeing what you come up with.